Let's go. Are we gonna do this? Podcast number 2. Hey now. All right, today we're going to talk about expert witnesses. I know I said I was going to talk about Dr. Luke's song stealing exploits, but that's going to have to wait till next time. Why? 2 reasons. 1, I'm faced with the Sisyphean task of compiling all that man's song steals. And number 2, I got a pressing deadline with the August 1st brief that I got to submit to the appeals court. And that's a big part of my podcast today. And a big part of my appeal, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Ferrara's report. Dr. Ferrara is an expert witness for Universal. He's a PhD in musicology. That means he went to school for a long time to study sheet music, and he says there are no similarities between Bright Red Chords and Domino. None. So I thought today it'd be fun to rip his report apart. Let me backtrack a little bit first. Expert witnesses are paid consultants hired in a court to give a judge and jury their expert opinion on whatever the trial pertains to. In a criminal proceeding, it's usually autopsies, ballistic experts, that kind of stuff. In my civil case with Universal and Jesse J, the paid experts are musicologists. Now, Dr. Ferrara is hired by Universal. He works with them on the reg, but he's also a very prestigious musicologist. He's been in a lot of high-profile cases. I'm not an expert in sheet music. I'm a rock guy, so I decided to call a friend of mine.
Hello.
Hey, Emily.
Hey, Will.
I'm here with Emily Kroom. She's been musically trained since she was 4 years old. Perfect pitch. She's conducted national tours. She's on Broadway shows like The Color Purple, Spam-A-Lot, The Monty Python Show. And she's sitting down here with me today to discuss Dr. Ferrara's musicology report. Emily, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy. Yay.
All right. Well, thanks, Emily. And you're somebody that can translate this.
Right.
So having your insights in this is really great.
Yeah, the fact that he says there are no similarities is a blatant lie. The other reports that you've gotten from the other musicians and anybody who just listens to the 2 songs is like, oh, that's literally the same melody. There's no way you can say there are no similarities between these 2 songs. That is lying out of your ass.
So let's just try to take down this guy's report page by page. Okay, so let's look at the first comment you had. It's example 2, page 13.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the fact that he said, I have found no significant structural similarities between Bright Red Chords and Dominoes is absolutely ludicrous. All I can say is, well, no, that is wrong.
What I saw in the deposition, without knowing how to read sheet music and that kind of stuff, is I saw Dr. Ferrara just nitpick piece by piece. He would say, even though that there's a drum break at the end of both choruses, drum breaks are common in every song. Or he would misalign the intros. I remember that's one of the things that when you first looked at this, you said something about how he was smoke and mirror, deliberately like changing notes to numbers in order to make things look less similar to a layman like myself or like a judge. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we're encountering on page 19. Could you go into a little bit of that and what your notations were on this page?
Sure. For some reason, he has changed the actual notes of the music to numbers. Literally, he gives you a musical example on page 17, so there's really no reason why you need to do this weird number thing. It's literally just a way to make this more confusing. So what happens is, for some reason, so phrase 2, he's talking about measure 3. Now, if you look at the actual sheet music of measure 3, you'll see that the top song, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then the Jesse J one, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the exact same thing. But since it's kind of like slightly like she has a pickup because the lyrics are different, and she might have gone down to that beat just to either to like try and make it slightly different. He lines it up so that you put the pickup on the front so that they don't actually match. He's not taking into account the fact that, like, she's using different pickups in different spots. If you start laying them right next to each other and you don't take into account that a pickup is a pickup and instead treat it as the beginning of the phrase, it's not going to match. A pickup is a pickup. A pickup is picking up into the actual melody, So, like, if you're looking at bar 3 of that B there on like glitter, that like is the pickup there. the actual phrase doesn't really begin until the D on Glitter.
Gotcha.
And he's not taking into account that how pickups work, pretty much. I don't see my markings on here, but I remember I had, like, used a pencil to, like, show you exactly where it matches up. Like, on phrase 2, the second bar, he put that 1 there in front of the 6-5, and again didn't treat it like a pickup. So the 6 and the 5 should actually be right on top of each other. So that's what he's doing with these numbers. He's not lining them up the way they actually should be lined up. He's being very literal with them and how they're lining up on everything.
Gotcha.
You know, if a song has different lyrics, the rhythm is not going to be exactly the same all the time, you know? So that was my beef that I had with there. Again, not looking at the gesture of the song. He's nitpicking at the very, very slight differences that you have and trying to make them as big as possible.
Yeah, and that's the kind of tunnel vision that he has to use to make things that are obviously similar, to say just a blanket statement that they're not at all similar. That's the most shocking thing about his whole report. So let's keep on rolling the next note.
On page 16, where I say he's literally just saying shit.
Yeah.
Number 18, he says, on the basis of my analysis, I found that there are no significant harmonic similarities between Bright Red Chords and Domino. The chord progressions in Bright Red Chords and Domino are notably different. Now, when he says that is, again, an absolute lie. They're both going from, I think, tonic to dominant. One of them might have a passing chord at one point, but they're essentially the exact same harmonic structure as well for that section. So when he says that there are no significant harmonic similarities, the way music works is that it's all about the gesture, you know, like the more you back up from music, the more the basic structure of the format is usually 1-5 or 1-4-5 or 1-6-2-4-5 or whatever. When you look at those sections in both of the songs, they're both 1-5. So it's one thing to say he did not rip it off from you, but to say that there are no similarities is looking at a painting that is red and saying that painting is not red.
This is a guy, Dr. Ferrara, that he works at NYU. He writes textbooks for the young, and what he's doing, if I'm understanding, is deliberately misusing his PhD to mislead a judge. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Sheet music-wise?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So let's go down to example 2, page 17. You have a couple notes on the musical example 1?
Yes, the highlights didn't go through, but the only difference pretty much in the two songs is Jessie J adds slight ornamentation on like 2 or 3 bars, pretty much.
So that's like what you'd call an embellishment, right? Like a vocal embellishment on the same melody. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what it seems like. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's an ornamentation. Like there's the basic melody, and then there's jazzing it up a bit, and that's what she's doing.
And when you say AKA 90% of the verse is exactly the same melody, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, like I remember when I highlighted it, it was mostly highlighted. Like the only difference I think was in measure 7 is the only measure that is slightly more different than the rest of it.
And again, we're talking about a guy with a PhD in music.
Yeah.
That knows better, presumably.
Oh, yeah. I guarantee you he knew what he was looking at.
All right, let's keep going. Page 18. Sure. You say it's not similar, it's the same on item 27. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, he says there is a similarity in the melodic phrase structure in verse 1 in Bright Red Chords and the first 8 bars in verse 1 in Domino there in each melodic phrase. He's saying they're similar. And I can definitely say that, like, if it's 90% similar, then it's the same. It's the same. The gesture is exactly the same. We're going back to the gesture of the music, and that is without all the ornamentations of what Jessie J is doing, it is the exact same song. He even says it in number 27 that there is a similarity in it. If you go back up to, like, page 13 or whatever, he says there are no similarities.
So he's contradicting himself in his own report.
Correct.
What's the thing that's irrelevant, item 27 or 28?
When he says a verse that consists of 4 2-bar melodic phrases is a commonplace musical idea found in songs in many genres and out of popular music, that point right there that he lists is completely irrelevant to this argument. That's pretty much like he was saying that a lot of painters use paintbrushes. That's pretty much the same thing that he's saying.
Okay. That's why, I asked for your help, because I'm a layman like a lot of people, and without sheet music knowledge, we think, oh my God, that's a total rip.
Right.
This guy's obviously well well, it appears that he's misusing a PhD, which is a fucking shame. So let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go down to the next note. All right. So on page 26, you wrote in A7 sus 4. So
Ferrara wrote the wrong chord.
Gotcha.
And then I think he starts talking about, now he's talking about, like, Rush and Out of Sight and, like, all that stuff. And I put, the post-it that I put on page 31 is Derailing. He found a bunch of songs that have a similar feel to them. And the fact that he even brought those up is derailing from the original argument, which is, was Domino ripped from Bright Red Chords? It doesn't matter if these other songs exist that sound similar. What matters is the timing of when Bright Red Chords came out and who knew who and who spoke to whom, and then Domino came out.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of this entire thing. It's not about what songs sound similar.
So
a lot of songs sound similar, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like he's become part of the legal team and he's doing a musicology equivalent of if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit, kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. Okay, well, let's keep moving down to the next note. Now, I'm on page 35 here. You say, these are major seconds, not minor thirds.
Oh, yeah. So, in Bright Red Chords and Domino, the intervals between the B and the D that go back and forth are major seconds. Da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. That's a major second. When you put I Don't Think So on there, it's your songs are minor thirds, and then I Don't Think So is major seconds, so therefore they're immediately irrelevant because they're not the same. Bright Red Chords and Domino both utilize minor thirds quite a bit in their verses, and throwing up a random song that has major seconds doesn't make any sense. You know, the other songs make sense because those all use minor thirds, but it's like, why is this song here? It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to the argument. These are major seconds, not minor thirds.
When you say
the fact that he even, sorry.
When you say the other songs, which ones do you mean?
It Must Be Magic is the one that's closest to them. Out of Sight is kind of close. Because you see how it goes back and forth from a D to a B, D, B, D, B?
Okay.
And same with It Must Be Magic. Those are all minor thirds.
Gotcha.
So those are actually kind of similar. But he's still trying to derail right now. But the fact that he threw this song up, I Don't Think So, it shouldn't even be in the list.
Okay, so on page 36, let's talk about item 75.
Yeah. He says, based on my analysis, I found that there are no significant similarities in structure, harmony, rhythm, melody, lyrics, meter, tempo. The tempo is exactly the same. Come on. Meter is exactly the same. Now he's just blowing smoke up somebody's ass.
I measured the tempo, and it's like they're both around 120 BPM. Like Domino is slightly faster, but they're almost the same tempo.
Yeah, it's blatant live right there.
Gotcha.
Like all of 75 is blatant live.
When you say refer to Knowles on page 37, what do you mean there?
When he says it is only in the verses where the musical ideas coincide, Dr. Knowles, again, does a very good job of showing you exactly why the verses are so similar. Like, he explains it way better than I can.
So that kind of concludes Dr. Ferrara's report. Do you have any thought, just generally, on Dr. Ferrara, ethically, what he did here, and musically, any closing thoughts that you have?
I'm just amazed that he can claim that the songs are not even similar at all. Like, even if you're just stepping back and you're like, well, I have no biases here at all, you can still look at it and be like, wow, these songs are really similar. The fact that he keeps saying that they're not similar at all is a lie. Like, there's no way you can look at that. Like, I'm saying that as a random person walking down the street, if you look at these two songs, they look the same. And the fact that he keeps saying that they don't look the same is like him trying to say the sky is green. Like, that's how ludicrous it is.
I remember talking to a lawyer about his report, and he said the word prostitution, and I thought, it's not even accurate. Like, this is worse. This to me is worse than prostitution, because at least that's a fair exchange. This is a guy that's deliberately misusing his education for, he's misleading people on purpose, when he knows better, and that's not an honest trade, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much for sitting in and helping me take apart this report. It's going to be helpful in the appeals process, and I just wanted to thank you again. And
No problem, dude. Anytime.